Although all of my art is about the human experience, sometimes I do art that's more directly protest art or activism type art. And I just recently finished this piece, which features 4 busts of former US presidents: George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And these particular busts are painted with 3 layers of titanium white and mounted on top of miniature little mantles. And then there's kind of a blood splatter type of paint application on the side of the faces, and labels underneath of each for George Washington, slaver; for Thomas Jefferson, rapist; for Andrew Jackson, murderer; and for FDR, racist. So these particular labels kind of signify specific oppressions that each of these presidents are connected to. And as a whole, this piece really just speaks to the art of protest, the removal of statues, as well as the defacing of statues of oppressive historical figures, and especially in U.S. history. And this is kind of a third image or a third look at this, because the initial sculptures, the public sculptures anyway, are monuments, of course, made by an artist during that time for the purpose of memorializing and celebrating, and sometimes even borderline worshiping or looking up to, reverencing these particular figures. And then in the protest art, when the statues are defaced or when they are removed, it creates a second image, whether it's the tearing down of the statue or the vacancy of the area, the statue being no longer there, being absent, or whether it's defacing the statue and kind of, it creates a shocking image of the red paint on the statue. So in this particular piece, I'm actually bringing those two things together into a shadow box frame. And so this is displayed as a professional fine art piece. And so that's kind of creating like a third image, a third look, memorializing or displaying this as a complete piece, which kind of speaks to the fact that it tells the whole story of history. It doesn't erase history. It doesn't eliminate the legacy or the story of these presidents. It actually just tells more of the story, the other side of the story. And so I feel like this is a piece that could stand in a school or an office or even a home and be a conversation piece about the importance of telling both sides of the story and really telling the whole story when we're dealing with history. So a second piece that I did to really mark this time, you can see with the G and the F for the place markers in this particular drawing, really commemorating George Floyd and the protests and outcry for racial and social justice following his brutal murder. And this particular drawing is, of course, of a small child, kind of a universal representation of a son or daughter of anyone who has been killed, whether by police or homicide of any form, really just kind of commemorating that relationship between the parent and the child, and the child's loss and the grief that particular child endures when a parent is killed brutally. And so the chalking off of the body line, and then the child, taking refuge inside of that, just remembering the parent. And you can see the little teddy bear kind of cast aside, kind of like the loss of innocence. And again, the place markers, the G and the F, kind of marking the place of this time and this movement for Black Lives Matter and for protecting life. That all parents and children should have the guarantee that their loved ones will be protected in a free and equitable society. So sometimes I create, of course, fine art that commemorates a time of activism and protest, and then other times I do apparel, such as these hoodies that I made during 2012 for Trayvon Martin to commemorate that. One says, "Am I suspicious?" The one that Isaiah's modeling, and then this one says, "Got Skittles, never forget Trayvon Martin." And this is, of course, so many years ago, 2012. Now we're in 2020. Almost a decade ago, and yet the "Am I Suspicious" hoodie could be, just worn today all over again with regards to the Elijah McClain case and him being killed because he was perceived as being suspicious. So in addition to those two pieces that I just showed, the portrait busts and the black and white drawing, for this moment, I created some face masks instead of the hoodies from 2012. This is an individual who purchased one of the Eye of Horus face masks. So these are on Zazzle.com, and you can just search for Rachel Dolezal face masks and find them there. So some Black Lives Matter face masks, some skin tone face masks, some ones with just my art on them, as well as the Eye of Horus and the Ankh, both of which are symbols really that relate to health and life and healing. So kind of a third thing that I have done the last couple months is create this booklet to support the cause that's ongoing to end racism, bigotry, and prejudice. And so this is just a little booklet on how to combat hate, racism, and prejudice. And it just shows practical tips. I discuss some ideas of how you can do this in your daily life as an individual, and then also how it can be done in businesses, and then also some tips for teachers in terms of how to really deinstitutionalize racism in the classroom, at your job, and just in your daily interactions with people. So if you would like a copy of this booklet, please just email me, radolezal77@gmail.com, or just contact me on my website, contact form, racheldolezal.com. It has a little tab for contact. I have mailed these out to 31 states and 4 countries. I've done 2 printings already, and I've only had them available for about a month or so. So, there's been a lot of interest, and I'm grateful for that. And I do hope that this little effort really does make a big difference for people in their daily lives to really, not just protest, but also to move that energy into practical actions in the workplace, in the classroom, and just daily interactions with each other on the street. In addition to my artwork and the educational materials and the booklet and the apparel, I also have joined the protests, and this is my protest sign that has names on the front and back. This is Langston. He, is so sweet. He just seems to really appreciate the importance of this sign. Immediately when he saw it, he just grabbed it and had to take it to the couch and just study all those names. And of course, I couldn't even fit all of the names on one sign, front and back. But I think it's important to protest. I think it's also important to go beyond protest and take action in our daily lives. And for me, fighting for racial and social justice is not an item on my to-do list. It is my to-do list. And so it finds its way into my art. It finds its way into my hair work. It finds its way into my mothering. It finds its way into every aspect of my life, education, and daily activities. So I think that, it's important to just kind of share some of the ways that I've been active during this season, because sometimes people do ask, like, what are you really doing? And we don't see you at the front lines leading the marches. And yeah, I'm not invited to lead marches anymore. I don't have any official title with an organization, but I still do stay active. And like I said, it's not, something on my to-do list. It is my to-do list, and it always will be my first and primary passion in life to fight for racial and social justice.